My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm 27 years old, and 9 months ago, I stood at the altar of a country club in Charleston, South Carolina, and watched my parents' faces as they realized they were sitting with the regular guests, while my fiance's family occupied the VIP section they'd expected to claim. For 9 years, my parents told everyone who'd listen that I'd made the biggest mistake of my life when I left home at 18. No college degree, no family support, no chance of success. "She'll come crawling back," my mother told relatives at Thanksgiving 2015. "Give her 6 months." I didn't come back. I built a life they couldn't imagine, married into a family they desperately wanted access to, and planned a wedding where their importance was measured not by their titles, but by their relationship with me, which, as it turned out, wasn't worth much. The look on my father's face when he realized he wasn't walking me down the aisle, when he understood that his speech had been cut from the reception program, when he saw the seating chart that placed him at table 8, behind my former landlord, my college roommate, and the woman who managed the coffee shop where I worked my first job, that look made 9 years of struggle worth it. Before I tell you what happened at that wedding, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story genuinely resonates with you. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to June 2015, the day I packed my bags and my parents laughed at me for thinking I could make it on my own. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. My parents, Robert and Catherine Torres, were both middle management at a textile company. Combined income around $140,000 a year. Comfortable, not wealthy. 3-bedroom house in a subdivision, 2 cars, annual beach vacations. They had one child, me. And they had plans for me. I'd go to Clemson University like my father, study business or nursing, something practical and respectable. I'd graduate, get a good job, marry a nice man from a good family, and settle down within an hour's drive of them. That was the plan. My plan was different. I wanted to study art history and move to Europe for a year. I wanted to work in museums, surround myself with culture and beauty, live a life that felt expansive and meaningful. When I told my parents during my senior year of high school, they laughed, actually laughed. "Art history?" My father shook his head. "That's not a career, Rebecca. That's a hobby." "It's what I'm passionate about," I said. "Passion doesn't pay bills," my mother said. "You'll study business at Clemson. We're not paying $100,000 for you to waste 4 years on paintings." I applied to Clemson's business school to appease them. Got accepted. But I also applied to College of Charleston's art history program. Also accepted. In May 2015, 1 month before high school graduation, I told my parents I was going to Charleston. "You're not," my father said flatly. "I am. I've already accepted their offer." "With what money? We're not paying for art history." "I'll take out loans. I'll work. I'll figure it out." My mother stood up. "Rebecca, if you do this, you're on your own. No financial support, no safety net. You'll fail, and we won't be there to catch you." "Then I'll fail on my terms," I said. My father laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You have no idea what the real world is like. You've never paid rent, never bought groceries, never handled bills. You'll be back here in 6 months. Begging us to help you apply to Clemson for spring semester." "I won't." "Yes, you will," he said, "because you're not special, Rebecca. You're not smarter or tougher than anyone else. You're just a stubborn kid who thinks she knows better than her parents. Reality will teach you otherwise." I graduated high school on June 5, 2015. My parents attended the ceremony but didn't take me to dinner after. "Save your money," my father said. "You'll need it." On June 15th, I packed my car. Everything I owned, clothes, books, laptop, $2,800 in savings from birthday money and part-time jobs. My parents stood in the driveway watching. "Last chance," my mother said. "Admit this is a mistake, unpack your car, and we'll forget this ever happened." "It's not a mistake," she shrugged. "Fine. Good luck. You'll need it." My father didn't say anything. Just stood there with his arms crossed, a slight smirk on his face. I drove to Charleston and never looked back. The first year was brutal. I lived in a studio apartment in North Charleston, $650 a month. Worked 3 jobs: barista at a coffee shop, hostess at a restaurant, weekend shift at a campus bookstore. Attended classes full-time. Slept maybe 5 hours a night, ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. My student loans covered tuition and books, but living expenses were on me. I called home once in August 2015. My mother answered. "How's it going?" she asked. I was tempted to lie, to say everything was great, but I was exhausted and homesick. "It's hard," I admitted. "I'm working a lot. Money's tight." "You could come home," she said. "We'll help you transfer to Clemson for spring." "I'm not coming home, Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice." She sighed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Rebecca. Pride is expensive." We talked for 5 more minutes, then I hung up. I didn't call again for 6 months. But there was one person who didn't doubt me. My high school art teacher, Mrs. Diane Chin. She'd written my recommendation letter for Charleston and had told me, "You have a gift for seeing beauty in things other people overlook. Don't let anyone convince you that's worthless." In September 2015, I received a card in the mail. Inside, a note in her handwriting. "Rebecca, I'm so proud of you for following your path. Enclosed is a small token to help with books or groceries. Don't thank me. Just keep going. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." She'd included a $200 Visa gift card. I cried in my apartment for 20 minutes. That $200 covered groceries for a month. More than that, it reminded me that someone believed in me. Mrs. Chin sent a card every semester for the next 4 years, sometimes with money, sometimes just with encouragement. She became the family I didn't have. By the end of my freshman year, I'd made it. Barely. I'd passed all my classes with a 3.4 GPA. I'd kept my jobs. I'd paid my rent. I hadn't gone home. My parents sent a text on my 19th birthday. "Happy birthday. Hope you're surviving." I replied, "I am. Thank you." No phone call. No visit. Just a text. That was our relationship for the next 3 years. In my sophomore year, fall 2016, I got an internship at the Gibby's Museum of Art in Charleston. Unpaid, but prestigious. I worked there 15 hours a week, learning about curation, art conservation, exhibition planning. I fell in love with the work. The museum director, a woman named Dr. Patricia Vance, took an interest in me. "You have an eye for this," she said. "Have you thought about graduate school?" I laughed. "I can barely afford undergraduate." "There are fellowships, scholarships. If you're serious about a career in museums, I can help you navigate the options." She became a mentor, wrote recommendation letters, introduced me to curators and conservators, helped me apply for grants. By junior year, I'd won a $5,000 scholarship for academic achievement. I used it to pay down my loans and reduce my work hours so I could focus on my thesis. I was building something, slowly, carefully, but building nonetheless. My parents never asked about my progress, never visited Charleston, never acknowledged that I was succeeding. In their minds, I was still the stubborn kid who'd rejected their plan, and maybe, on some level, they needed me to fail to prove they'd been right. But I wasn't failing, and that, I think, made them angrier than anything else. In my senior year, spring 2019, I met Julian Whitmore. He was a second-year law student at Charleston School of Law, clerking at a firm downtown. We met at a museum fundraiser where I was volunteering. He was there with his family, major donors to the Gibbs. Julian came from money, old Charleston money. His grandfather had been a state senator. His father ran a successful commercial real estate company. The Whitmore family name appeared on buildings, scholarships, hospital wings. But Julian wasn't interested in talking about his family. He wanted to talk about art, about the exhibition we were attending, about my thesis on Southern folk art. "You actually care about this," he said. "Most people at these things are just here for the wine and networking." "I work here," I said. "This is my life." He smiled. "That's refreshing." We exchanged numbers, started dating a month later. Julian was kind, thoughtful, genuinely interested in my work. He didn't care that I came from a middle-class family in Greenville or that I worked 3 jobs to pay rent. He cared that I was passionate, driven, building a life I was proud of. By the time I graduated in May 2019, we were serious. I'd been accepted to a master's program in museum studies at University of South Carolina with a full fellowship. Julian was finishing his final year of law school. We moved in together in Columbia in August 2019. I called my parents to tell them about graduate school. My father answered, "That's great, Rebecca. Another 2 years of school, more debt." "It's fully funded, Dad. I'm not taking on more debt, and I have a research assistantship that pays a stipend." Silence. "Well, good for you," he said. "No congratulations, no pride. Just acknowledgement and a quick goodbye." I hung up and realized they would never be happy for me, not because I was failing, but because I was succeeding without them. And that was something they couldn't forgive. Let me show you what 9 years of being dismissed by your parents looks like. It's not just one moment. It's a pattern of exclusion, minimization, and quiet contempt. By the time I got engaged in 2023, my parents had perfected the art of making me feel like an afterthought in my own family. Holidays were the worst. Thanksgiving 2016, my first year at Charleston, I drove home to Greenville, spent $60 on gas I couldn't afford, brought a pumpkin pie I'd baked myself. My parents had invited extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins. 20 people crammed into their house. I walked in carrying the pie, and my mother barely looked up. "Oh, Rebecca, you came. You invited me." "I said you were welcome to come. I didn't think you would. You're so busy with your little art project." "It's college, Mom, not a project." She took the pie without thanking me. Dinner was awkward. My cousins asked about Charleston. I tried to share stories about my classes, my internship. My father interrupted. "Rebecca's studying paintings. Nothing practical. But she's young. She'll figure it out eventually." My uncle laughed. "Art history? What are you going to do with that? Give museum tours?" Everyone laughed. I smiled tightly and changed the subject. After dinner, I overheard my mother talking to my aunt in the kitchen. "She's struggling, of course, working herself to death for a degree that won't lead anywhere, but she won't admit she made a mistake. Too proud." I left after dessert, didn't stay for coffee. The 4-hour round trip felt like a waste of time and money. I didn't go home for Christmas that year. Thanksgiving 2018, junior year. I just won the $5,000 scholarship. I thought maybe my parents would be proud, so I drove home again. This time, my father asked about my plans after graduation. "I'm applying to graduate programs, museum studies. I want to work as a curator." "More school," he said, shaking his head. "Rebecca, at some point you need to get a real job." "This is a real career path, Dad." "Making what? $40,000 a year if you're lucky? You could have been a business analyst by now, making double that." "I don't care about making double that. I care about doing work I love." "That's the problem," he said. "You prioritize feelings over practicality. That's why you're struggling." "I'm not struggling. I'm thriving." He smirked. "If you say so." My mother chimed in. "Honey, your father just wants what's best for you. We all do. It's not too late to reconsider your path. You could get a business degree online. Keep your options open." "I don't want to keep my options open. I know what I want." "You're 22, my father said. "You don't know anything." I left before dessert that year. The holidays became a pattern. I'd make the effort to come home, hoping for connection, validation, acknowledgement. Instead, I got condescension, dismissal, and thinly veiled disappointment. By 2020, I stopped going home altogether. When Julian and I got serious, I told him about my parents, how they'd laughed when I left, how they predicted I'd fail, how they treated my accomplishments like hobbies. "Why do you still talk to them?" Julian asked. "They're my parents. I keep hoping they'll come around." "Rebecca, some people don't come around. Some people need you to fail to validate their worldview. When you succeed despite them, it threatens their narrative." He was right, but I wasn't ready to cut them off completely. I still called on birthdays, sent Christmas cards, maintained the thinnest thread of connection. In December 2020, I got my master's degree, graduated with honors, accepted a position as assistant curator at the Columbia Museum of Art. Salary, $48,000 a year. Not rich, but stable. Meaningful work, a career I was proud of. I called my parents to tell them. My mother answered, "That's wonderful, honey. So you're staying in Columbia?" "Yes, I have a great job. Julian's at a law firm here. We're building a life." "When are you two getting married?" "We've talked about it, maybe in a year or two." "You should lock that down," she said. "He comes from a good family. Don't let him slip away." "It's not about locking anything down, Mom. We love each other." "Love is great, Rebecca, but security matters too. His family has money. You don't want to work in museums forever, do you?" I hung up feeling hollow. To my parents, my relationship with Julian wasn't about love or partnership. It was about access to money and status they didn't have. In July 2023, Julian proposed. We were on vacation in Napa Valley at a winery overlooking the vineyards. He got down on one knee and said, "You're the most passionate, determined person I've ever met. I want to spend my life supporting your dreams the way you support mine. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears. The ring was stunning. A vintage sapphire surrounded by diamonds, an heirloom from his grandmother. We set a date, May 18th, 2024. Charleston, the city where we'd met. I called my parents that night. My mother answered. I told her the news. She screamed, "Oh my God, Rebecca! Julian proposed? When's the wedding?" May 18th, 2024, Charleston. Charleston, how lovely. His family must be so excited. The Whitmores are very prominent, aren't they? They're excited, yes. Rebecca, this is wonderful. Your father and I will need to meet with Julian's parents, of course. Coordinate. These things require planning. We're handling the planning, Mom, but yes, you'll meet them. I'll start looking at mother of the bride dresses. Oh, this is so exciting. She put my father on the phone. Congratulations, Rebecca. Julian's a good man. You did well. Thanks, Dad. I assume we'll be involved in the planning? Traditional weddings usually include the bride's parents in major decisions. We'll keep you updated, but Julian and I are paying for the wedding ourselves. We want to do it our way. Pause. Your way? Of course. He sounded disappointed, like I'd already taken something from him. Over the next 6 months, my parents inserted themselves into every conversation. They wanted input on the venue, the guest list, the menu, the flowers. My mother called weekly with suggestions. You should have the reception at expensive venue. The Whitmores would appreciate that. We've already booked a venue, Mom. What about the ceremony? Your father should walk you down the aisle. That's tradition. We're still deciding on that. What's there to decide? He's your father. I talked to Julian about it. He knew my history with them. Rebecca, this is your wedding, not theirs. If you don't want your father to walk you down the aisle, don't let him. But people will ask questions. Let them. The people who matter will understand. I thought about it for weeks. Then I made my decision. My father wouldn't walk me down the aisle. Mrs. Chen, my high school art teacher, would. She'd believed in me when my parents didn't. She'd supported me when they laughed. She'd earned that honor. My parents hadn't. Planning the wedding revealed just how differently Julian's family and my parents viewed me. Julian's parents, Richard and Eleanor Whitmore, treated me with warmth and respect from the moment we met. They asked about my work at the museum, my research, my interests. They never mentioned my family's financial situation or my student loans. They just cared about the person I was. Rebecca, Julian has never been happier, Eleanor told me over lunch in January 2024. We're thrilled he found someone who shares his values and passion for life. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. That means a lot. Please, call me Eleanor. And I want you to know, Richard and I would like to contribute to the wedding. We know you and Julian are paying for it yourselves, which we respect. But we'd love to cover the venue and catering as our gift to you both. I was stunned. That's incredibly generous. You're family now, Rebecca. That's what family does. The Whitmores contributed $45,000 toward the wedding. Venue, catering, flowers. They insisted it was a gift, not a loan. No strings attached. We just want you to have a beautiful day, Richard said. My parents, meanwhile, contributed $2,000 and made sure everyone knew about it. We're helping with the wedding, my mother told relatives. It's expensive, but we want Rebecca to have a nice day. $2,000 out of a $70,000 wedding, less than 3%, but they talked about it like they were funding the entire event. When I sent my parents the seating chart in April 2024, my mother called immediately. "Rebecca, we're at table 8, that's in the back." "It's not in the back, Mom, it's near the dance floor." "But Julian's parents are at table 1, his grandparents are at table 2, his aunts and uncles are at tables 3 and 4. Why are we at table 8? "Because that's where you're seated." "This is humiliating. We're the bride's parents. We should be at table 1 or 2. "The tables near the front are reserved for people who've been actively involved in our lives. Julian's family has been incredibly supportive. You've been present." "Present? Rebecca, we raised you." "You raised me until I was 18. Then you laughed when I left and told me I'd fail." Silence. "That's not fair," my mother said quietly. "It's accurate. You can sit at table 8 or you can choose not to come. But I'm not rearranging the seating chart." She hung up. My father called an hour later. "Your mother is very upset." "I know." "You're embarrassing us, Rebecca. Our friends and family will ask why we're not seated with the Whitmores." "Then tell them the truth, that we don't have the kind of relationship that warrants a seat at the head table." "This is about that art school nonsense, isn't it? You're still holding a grudge because we didn't support your impractical degree?" "It's not a grudge, Dad. It's a boundary. You didn't believe in me. You didn't support me. You're invited to my wedding because you're my parents, but you haven't earned a place of honor. We fed you, clothed you, paid for your childhood. We earned more than a table in the back. You did your legal obligation as parents. That doesn't entitle you to respect as adults." He hung up. The next call came from my mother's sister, Aunt Linda. "Rebecca, your mother is devastated. Can't you just move them to a better table for the sake of family peace?" "No." "You're being stubborn." "I'm being honest. My parents spent 9 years telling me I'd fail. They don't get to show up at my wedding and pretend they supported me all along." "They're your parents. You only get one set." "And they only get one daughter. They could have treated her better." Aunt Linda sighed. "You've changed, Rebecca. You used to be such a sweet girl." "I used to be a doormat. Now I'm a woman with boundaries." I hung up. The controversy spread through my extended family. Some relatives called to tell me I was being harsh. Others quietly supported me. My cousin Maria sent a text. "Good for you. Your parents have always been condescending. It's about time someone stood up to them." The real turning point came when my mother demanded that my father be allowed to walk me down the aisle. "It's tradition," she said during a call in late April. "Everyone will expect it." "I've asked Mrs. Chen to walk me down the aisle." "Your high school art teacher? Are you joking?" "She believed in me when you didn't. She deserves the honor." "Rebecca, your father will be humiliated." "Then maybe he should have thought about that before telling me I'd come crawling back." "You're being cruel." "I'm being fair. Mrs. Chen earned this. Dad didn't." My mother started crying. "I don't even recognize you anymore. You've become so cold." "I've become someone who doesn't tolerate being disrespected. If that's cold, so be it." She hung up. My father didn't call, didn't text, just silence. But Mrs. Chen, when I asked her, cried tears of joy. "Rebecca, I would be honored, truly honored." "You've been more of a parent to me than they ever were," I said. "Thank you for believing in me." "You made it easy, sweetheart. You were always going to succeed. You just needed someone to remind you of that." We met for lunch in Charleston 2 weeks before the wedding. She brought a gift, a framed sketch she'd drawn of the Gibby's Museum, the place where Julian and I had met. "For your new home," she said, "a reminder of where your journey began." I hugged her and cried. This was family. Not the people who shared my DNA, but the people who showed up when it mattered. On May 10th, 8 days before the wedding, my mother sent a text. "If your father can't walk you down the aisle, we're not coming." I replied, "That's your choice." They didn't respond. I didn't know if they'd actually follow through, but I wasn't going to change my plans to accommodate their egos. I'd spent 9 years proving them wrong. I wasn't going to let them rewrite history on my wedding day. The week before the wedding was chaos. Final dress fitting, rehearsal dinner, last-minute details with the florist and photographer, and the constant question from well-meaning relatives. Are your parents coming? I didn't know. They hadn't RSVP'd, hadn't called, hadn't clarified whether my mother's threat was real or just manipulation. Julian thought they'd show up. They won't miss your wedding. They're just trying to pressure you into giving them what they want. Maybe, I said. Or maybe their pride is more important than being there. Either way, we're having the wedding we planned, with or without them. He was right, but part of me, the part that still hoped for reconciliation, wanted them there. Wanted them to see what I'd built, who I'd become, the life I'd created without their help. I wanted them to feel proud, even if they'd never admit it. On May 15th, 3 days before the wedding, my Aunt Linda called. "Rebecca, your parents are coming to the wedding." Relief washed over me. "They are?" "Yes, but they're very hurt. Your mother has been crying for weeks." "I didn't make this difficult, Aunt Linda." "They did." "I know, honey, but maybe at the wedding you could acknowledge them somehow. A toast? A special mention during the speeches?" "No, the program is set. If they want to be acknowledged, they can start by acknowledging how they treated me." "You're not going to make this easy for them, are you?" "They didn't make anything easy for me. Why should I?" She sighed. "Just don't be surprised if there's tension." "I won't be." I hung up and told Julian. He squeezed my hand. "How do you feel?" "Relieved they're coming. Nervous about what they'll do." "Whatever happens, we handle it together." "Together," I agreed. The rehearsal dinner was May 17th, the night before the wedding, held at a private room in a restaurant overlooking Charleston Harbor. 50 people, close family and friends. The Whitmores hosted. My parents arrived late, dressed formally, faces tight. My mother wore a forced smile. My father looked uncomfortable. I greeted them at the door. "Hi, Mom, Dad, I'm glad you came." "We wouldn't miss it," my mother said, though her tone suggested otherwise. They sat at a table with my extended family. Didn't mingle with Julian's family. Didn't approach the Whitmores to introduce themselves. Just sat stiffly, drinking wine and whispering to each other. During the rehearsal, we walked through the ceremony. Mrs. Chen stood in as my escort, walking me down the aisle to where Julian waited. My father watched from his seat, jaw clenched. After the rehearsal, Richard Whitmore gave a toast. "Tomorrow, we welcome Rebecca into our family. She's a remarkable young woman, intelligent, passionate, kind. Julian is a lucky man, and we're lucky to have her." Everyone clapped. My mother's smile was brittle. My father didn't clap at all. At the end of the night, my mother cornered me near the exit. "Rebecca, we need to talk." "Now?" "Yes. This is your last chance to reconsider." "Reconsider what?" "Your father walking you down the aisle. It's not too late. Tomorrow morning you can tell Mrs. Chen there's been a change and your father can fulfill his role." "No. Rebecca, please. You're humiliating him. Humiliating us." "I'm honoring the person who deserves it, Mom. If Dad feels humiliated, that's on him. He had 9 years to build a relationship with me. He chose not to." "We're your parents. You're the people who gave birth to me. That's biology, not relationship. Mrs. Chen earned the right to walk me down the aisle. You didn't." My father appeared behind her. "We're leaving." "Dad?" "No, your mother tried. You've made your choice. We'll be at the ceremony tomorrow because we said we would. But don't expect us to pretend this is acceptable." They left without saying goodbye. Julian found me standing alone in the hallway. "You okay?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to fix this. The other part knows I'm doing the right thing." "You are doing the right thing. They've had 9 years to apologize, to support you, to show up. They didn't. Now they're upset about the consequences. That's not your fault." "I know, but it still hurts." "Of course it does. They're your parents. But Rebecca, tomorrow is about us, about our future. Don't let their dysfunction overshadow that." He was right. Tomorrow I'd marry the man I loved, surrounded by people who'd actually shown up for me. My parents' bitterness couldn't touch that. The morning of May 18th, 2024, I woke up in a hotel suite with my bridesmaids. We had champagne and breakfast, did hair and makeup, laughed and told stories. Mrs. Chen arrived at noon with a gift, a silver bracelet engraved with the words, "You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Wear this today," she said, as a reminder that you chose your path and it led you here. I cried, careful not to ruin my makeup. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. at a historic chapel in downtown Charleston. The reception followed at a waterfront venue with views of the harbor. Everything was perfect: flowers, music, lighting. Julian's family had spared no expense, and it showed. At 3 p.m., I stood in the bridal suite adjusting my dress. The coordinator knocked. "Rebecca, there's someone here to see you, your father." My stomach dropped. What does he want? "He says he needs to talk to you, just for a minute." I looked at Mrs. Chen. She squeezed my hand. "You don't have to see him if you don't want to." "I'll see him, but stay close." She nodded. My father entered, wearing a tuxedo, looking older than I remembered. "Rebecca, you look beautiful." "Thank you." He stood there, hands in his pockets, clearly uncomfortable. "I came to ask one more time. Please let me walk you down the aisle. I'm your father. It's my right." "It's not a right, Dad. It's an honor, and you didn't earn it." His face hardened. "I see. Then I guess there's nothing more to say." "I guess not." He turned to leave, then stopped. "You know, I always knew you'd end up here, marrying someone from a wealthy family, using his money to prop up your little museum career." I felt the words like a slap. "I'm not using anyone. Julian and I are partners." "Sure you are, just like you've been using his family's connections this whole time. You didn't earn any of this, Rebecca. You just got lucky." "Get out." "Gladly. Enjoy your wedding. I hope it's everything you wanted." He left. I stood there shaking. Mrs. Chen wrapped her arms around me. "Breathe, honey. Just breathe." "He thinks I married Julian for money. He thinks that because he can't imagine success that doesn't involve shortcuts or luck. He's wrong, and deep down, he knows it." I took a breath. "Let's get married." At 4 p.m., the chapel doors opened. The music started. My bridesmaids walked down the aisle in dusty blue dresses, carrying bouquets of white roses and eucalyptus. Julian stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored navy suit, smiling at me through the open doors. And then it was my turn. Mrs. Chen took my arm. "Ready?" "Ready?" We walked down the aisle together. The chapel was filled with 120 guests. I saw Julian's family in the front rows, his parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, all smiling. I saw my friends from college, grad school, the museum. I saw the people who'd supported me, believed in me, showed up for me over the years. And in the middle section, I saw my parents. My mother in a lavender dress, tissue in her hand, dabbing her eyes. My father in his tuxedo, arms crossed, face unreadable. They watched as Mrs. Chen walked me down the aisle, watched as she kissed my cheek at the altar and whispered, "I'm so proud of you," watched as she took her seat in the front row, the place traditionally reserved for the mother of the bride. The ceremony was beautiful. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. "Rebecca," Julian said, "you taught me that success isn't measured by where you come from, but by who you become. You're the bravest person I know. I promise to support your dreams, to stand beside you, and to build a life with you that reflects both of our values." I was crying before I finished my own vows. "Julian, you believed in me when I needed it most. You saw me, not my past or my struggles, but the person I was trying to become. I promise to be your partner in all things, to challenge you, to support you, and to love you exactly as you are." We exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced us married. We kissed, and the chapel erupted in applause. As we walked back down the aisle, I glanced at my parents. My mother was crying, but not happy tears. My father stared straight ahead, expression unchanged. We exited the chapel to a shower of rose petals. Guests cheered. Photographers snapped pictures. It was perfect, except for the hollow feeling in my chest when I thought about the two people who should have been celebrating and weren't. The reception started at 6 p.m. The waterfront venue was stunning: string lights, tall centerpieces, a dance floor overlooking the harbor. Guests arrived, found their tables, began mingling over cocktails. Table 1, Richard and Eleanor Whitmore, Julian's grandparents. Table 2, Julian's siblings and their spouses. Table 3, his closest aunts and uncles. Table 4, his college friends. Table 5, my friends from Charleston. Table 6, my grad school cohort. Table 7, museum colleagues. Table 8, my parents, 2 aunts, 1 uncle, and 3 cousins. My parents sat stiffly, not talking to anyone. When the Whitmores walked past their table to greet other guests, Richard paused. "You must be Robert and Catherine. I'm Richard Whitmore, Julian's father. It's wonderful to finally meet you." My father stood, shook his hand. "Likewise." "Your daughter is extraordinary," Richard said. "We're thrilled to welcome her into our family." "Thank you," my mother said, her voice tight. Richard moved on. My mother turned to my father and hissed something I couldn't hear from across the room. But I saw her face. Embarrassed, angry, hurt. Dinner was served. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, truffle mashed potatoes. Wine flowed freely. Guests laughed and chatted. At our sweetheart table, Julian and I sat holding hands, watching the room. "Your parents haven't smiled once," Julian observed. I noticed. "Do you think they'll leave early?" "Probably, but they'll stay through the speeches. They won't want people to ask why they left." He squeezed my hand. "Their loss." The speeches began at 8 p.m. Richard Whitmore went first. When Julian told us he'd met someone special, we were excited. When he told us about Rebecca, her intelligence, her passion for art, her determination to build a meaningful career, we were impressed. And when we met her, we understood why Julian loves her. She's kind, thoughtful, and has a strength that comes from overcoming challenges most of us can't imagine. "Rebecca, welcome to our family. We're honored to have you." He raised his glass. Everyone clapped. My mother's smile was brittle. Julian's sister spoke next, sharing funny stories about their childhood and welcoming me as a sister. Then Mrs. Chin stood. I hadn't known she'd prepared a speech. I'm not Rebecca's mother, though I love her like a daughter. I was her high school art teacher, and I've had the privilege of watching her grow from a talented teenager into an accomplished woman. 9 years ago, Rebecca made a choice that required immense courage. She left comfort and security to pursue a dream her family didn't support. She worked 3 jobs while earning her degrees. She paid her own way. She built a career in a competitive field, and she did it with grace, humility, and determination. Today, she's marrying a man who sees her value and celebrates her achievements. I couldn't be prouder. To Rebecca and Julian. The applause was thunderous. People stood. Several guests were crying. My parents sat motionless. My father's face was red. My mother stared at her plate. Mrs. Chin's speech had done what I couldn't. Publicly acknowledged that I'd succeeded without my parents' support. That I'd done it despite them, not because of them. After the speeches, my father approached me at the sweetheart table. "That was a lovely speech," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Painting us as the villains. Very classy." "Mrs. Chin spoke the truth, Dad." "The truth? She made it sound like we abandoned you." "You did. Emotionally, if not physically. We gave you 18 years of support. You threw it away." "No, I took a different path. You couldn't accept that." He leaned in. "Enjoy your night, Rebecca. Enjoy your rich husband and his family's money. But don't pretend you earned this. You married well. That's not the same as succeeding." He walked away. I sat there, shaking. Julian put his arm around me. "Ignore him." "I'm trying." "Rebecca, look around. Look at the people here. They're here because they love you, because they believe in you. Your father's bitterness doesn't change that." He was right. The rest of the night was perfect. We danced. We laughed. We celebrated with people who actually cared. My parents left at 9:30 p.m. without saying goodbye. I didn't notice until someone mentioned it an hour later. And honestly, I didn't care. Julian and I honeymooned in Italy for 2 weeks. When we returned to Colombia in June 2024, real life resumed. Work, routines, adjusting to being married. My parents didn't call, didn't send a card, just silence. In July, my mother's sister, Aunt Linda, reached out. "Rebecca, Your mother is heartbroken. The wedding was humiliating for them. Sitting in the back, watching Mrs. Chen walk you down the aisle, listening to that speech. They feel like you publicly shamed them. I didn't shame them. I honored the person who deserved it. They're your parents. And they treated me like a disappointment for 9 years. I'm not obligated to pretend otherwise. Can't you just apologize? Smooth things over? For what? For setting boundaries? For refusing to let them rewrite history? Aunt Linda sighed. You've become so hard, Rebecca. I've become honest. There's a difference. We didn't speak again after that. In September, I received a letter. My mother's handwriting. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. Rebecca, your father and I have been reflecting on your wedding. We realize now that we made mistakes. We didn't support your decision to study art history. We doubted you when we should have encouraged you. We are sorry for that. But what you did at your wedding was cruel. You humiliated us in front of family and friends. You replaced your father with a teacher. You seated us with distant relatives. You allowed speeches that painted us as failures. We're hurt, we're angry, and we don't know how to move forward. If you want a relationship with us, you need to apologize. You need to acknowledge that you went too far. Until then, we think it's best if we don't communicate. Mom. I read the letter 3 times, showed it to Julian. They want an apology, he said. For what? For exposing them, for refusing to play along with their narrative. They're the ones who need to apologize, not me. I agree. So what are you going to do? I thought about it for a week. Then I wrote back. Mom and Dad, I received your letter. I understand you're hurt, but I'm not going to apologize for my wedding. Mrs. Chen walked me down the aisle because she earned that honor through years of support and belief. You didn't. The seating reflected the relationships we actually have, not the ones you wanted people to think we have. The speeches told the truth about my journey. If that truth embarrassed you, that's something you need to reflect on. I didn't fail because I left home at 18. I succeeded. I have a master's degree, a career I love, and a marriage built on mutual respect. I did it without your financial support and without your emotional support. I'm proud of that. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on who I actually am, not who you wanted me to be. I'm not apologizing for my choices or my success, but I'm open to rebuilding our relationship if you're willing to accept me as I am. The ball is in your court. Rebecca. I mailed the letter in October 2024. Didn't hear back for 2 months. In December, my mother called. Rebecca, can we talk? I'm listening. Your father and I have been in therapy. Our therapist suggested we reach out. Okay. We're not ready to apologize. Not fully, but we want to try to understand each other better. Would you be willing to meet? Just coffee, neutral ground. I talked to Julian. What do you think? I think it's a start, but go in with low expectations. Always. I met them in January 2025 at a coffee shop in Greenville. They looked older, tired. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a minute. Then my father spoke. Rebecca, we were wrong to laugh when you left home. We were wrong to predict you'd fail. We were scared. Scared you'd struggle. Scared we couldn't protect you. Scared you were making a mistake. We'd have to watch you suffer through. So you decided to make me suffer preemptively? That's not fair. It's accurate, Dad. My mother intervened. We're trying, Rebecca. We're trying to understand why you resent us so much. I don't resent you. I resent how you treated me. There's a difference. We gave you everything, my father said. Until you didn't. Until I chose a path you didn't approve of and you cut me off. We didn't cut you off. You left. You gave me an ultimatum. Your way or nothing. That's not support. That's control. The conversation lasted an hour. We didn't resolve anything, but we agreed to keep trying. To meet occasionally. To attempt to build something resembling a relationship. It's been slow, awkward, full of missteps and tense moments. But it's something. My parents met Julian properly in March 2025. Dinner at our house in Columbia. They were polite, reserved, asked about his work, complimented the house. At the end of the night, my father shook Julian's hand. You've done well for yourself, Rebecca. This is a nice life. Thank you, Dad. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd gotten in 9 years. In April 2025, I got promoted at the museum, associate curator, salary increase to $58,000, more responsibility, more autonomy. I called my mother to tell her. That's wonderful, honey. We're proud of you. It was the first time she'd said those words. I cried after we hung up. Not because it fixed everything, but because it was a start. My parents will never be the family I wanted. They'll never fully understand or appreciate the path I chose. But they're trying, and for now, that's enough. So that's my story. Parents who laughed when I left home at 18, 9 years of proving them wrong, and a wedding where they finally stopped laughing. If you take anything from this, let it be this. You don't owe loyalty to people who don't support you, even if they're family. You have the right to surround yourself with people who celebrate your success, not resent it. I left home with $2,800 and a dream. I built a career, married the man I love, and created a life I'm proud of. My parents wanted me to fail so they could be right. Instead, I succeeded, and they had to watch. That's not revenge, that's just justice. Before I go, let me tell you where everyone is now. My parents are still in Greenville, both retired now. We talk once a month. It's cordial but distant. Mrs. Chen is still teaching, still mentoring students, still being the kind of person who changes lives by believing in people. Julian and I are thriving. He made partner at his law firm in 2024. I'm on track to become a senior curator within 5 years. We're building a life that reflects our values. And the Whitmores, they're family in the truest sense. Present, supportive, proud. They show up. If this story resonated with you, thank you for listening. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And remember, the people who laugh at your dreams don't deserve a front row seat when those dreams come true. Goodbye for now. And remember, success is the best response to doubt. You don't have to say a word. Just show up and prove them wrong.